After years of warnings from defense officials that China is acquiring an advantage in that field, the U.S. Department of Defense is investing heavily in hypersonic weapons. However, a 21st century arms race poses a serious threat, particularly given the incomplete knowledge of Chinese weapons development and the deteriorating bilateral relations. It's not a new concept. The U.S. has been developing and testing hypersonic weapons since the 1950s. Hypersonic weapons are vehicles and missiles that can move at speeds more than Mach 5 or 5 times the speed of sound. But while China and Russia have advanced their hypersonic programs, the U.S. has made comparatively little expenditure on these systems recently. The biggest number of hypersonic Kinzhal missiles ever employed by Russia in a single strike during the war was 6, which were launched in Ukraine earlier this month. Hypersonic programs are being developed in several other nations, including Australia, Iran, North and South Korea, Brazil, Germany, Israel, India, and Japan. The U.S. program, meanwhile, has seen a surge in budget and pace at a time when relations between the two countries are at an all-time low. According to a January assessment from the Congressional Budget Office, the Department of Defense's planned budget for Army and Air Force hypersonics development and procurement is currently at $15 billion. The Navy's Hypersonics Development Program, which in February announced a $1.1 billion deal with the defense company Lockheed Martin to equip Zumwalt-class destroyers with a hypersonic system, is not included in that sum. It may be true, as defense officials have claimed for years, that the U.S. is behind China in the development of hypersonic weapons. A hypersonic nuclear-capable weapon was tested by China in 2021, surprising many in the defense industry at the time and demonstrating the country's astonishing progress in hypersonic technology. Once American technological predominance was regarded as all but unassailable, and China tended to be dismissed as a copycat that was unlikely to close the gap, Elsa Kania, an adjunct senior fellow with the Technology and National Security Program at the Center for a New American Security, wrote in an email to Vox. The urgency of U.S. initiatives and programs on multiple fronts has increased in light of China's capacity to lead in new frontiers and strategic technologies. Concerning the employment of hypersonic weapons, there are almost no multilateral or bilateral treaties, which, as the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962 illustrated, might result in global terror or even tragedy. Given that the major players in the hypersonic area are at odds and have little desire to negotiate on anything, let alone a growing military danger, there is currently no evidence that any such treaty or accord is on the table. Despite this, U.S. defense officials, lawmakers, and arms producers have continued to campaign for hypersonic technology, and the government is currently prepared to fund the endeavor. Although expensive, hypersonic weapons do have some benefits. In the 1960s, the U.S. military started developing hypersonic systems, focusing primarily on human transport capabilities rather than just weaponry. However, it started to shift in the 1980s, as Popular Science reported last year, to demonstrate that missiles traveling at Mach 5 or faster could be steered to hit a target as they re-entered Earth's atmosphere. The Air Force tested the maneuvering re-entry vehicle, Nara-V, during that time. Beginning in the early 2000s, the U.S. began to seriously pursue the development of hypersonic missiles as part of its conventional Quick Global Strike program. The U.S. is working on two key concepts for hypersonic weapon systems: the glide vehicle and the air-breathing missile. The 2021 tests demonstrated that China is building nuclear-capable missiles even if the weapon systems in question are conventional or non-nuclear. According to Lyle Morris, Senior Fellow for Foreign Policy and National Security at the Asia Society Policy Institute's Center for China Analysis, China has been looking for ways to counter U.S. missile defense systems for decades. China's always felt that U.S. missile defense systems undermine China's nuclear deterrence. Morris spoke to Vox in an interview. China accelerated its hypersonic research beginning in the early 2000s in response to the U.S. and Soviet Union's decision to withdraw from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. China recognized the necessity for a different form of deterrent as a result of the unrestricted development of anti-ballistic systems. The ballistic missile is used to launch glide-type weapons, which China has tested, according to Timothy Heath, a senior international defense researcher at the RAND Corporation. In their system, a ballistic missile is fired while a hypersonic glider is perched on top. The glider eventually splits from the ballistic missile and embarks on this hypersonic trajectory, which, unlike a ballistic missile, is in the atmosphere. It maneuvers and strikes its target mostly using inertia from launch while traveling at hypersonic speeds. He claims that China has stated that they are prepared to use hypersonic weapons, which is a step or two beyond where the U.S. program is right now. We are still in the testing phase of hypersonic missiles, so the Chinese do appear to have made faster progress than the U.S. Given the sophistication of China's ballistic missile program and the U.S. contemporaneous underinvestment in ballistic missiles, it is not unexpected that China was able to create these weapons more quickly than the U.S. It's not just their speed that sets hypersonic weapons apart from ballistic weapons, but rather their ability to move while in flight and avoid missile detection and defense systems like the Patriot. The Patriot missile defense system, one of the most cutting-edge in the US, is also utilized in 17 other nations. They avoid detection for a portion of their voyage by leaving the Earth's atmosphere or almost leaving it, and by changing their direction while in flight. According to Kenya, even the most advanced air and missile defense systems may be vulnerable to hypersonic weapons systems shortly. The effects of a new weapons race are severe. It is understandable to be concerned about the acceleration of both hostile rhetoric and weapon development given China's successful hypersonic tests and the adversarial atmosphere between Beijing and Washington. However, given her high cost $15 million to $18 million per missile, according to the Congressional Budget Office, and the realities of the battlefield, where basic tools like artillery are much more practical, there are several barriers to their widespread use in combat. According to a February report from the Congressional Research Service, opponents of the U.S. hypersonics development program claim the weapons lack defined mission requirements, contribute little to U.S. military capability, and are unnecessary for deterrence. Some experts, including Morris and Heath, have expressed doubt about the actual utility of hypersonics on the battlefield. Naturally, there is also the worry that China would share technology with U.S. foes like North Korea, Iran, and especially Russia, all of whom are developing their hypersonic programs. The transfer or sharing of information or research connected to the development of hypersonics would not be surprising, according to Kenya, who spoke to Vox. China and Russia appear to be on course to increase their defense and technology collaboration, at least discreetly. Beijing undoubtedly has more clout at this stage and is keen to learn from Russia's mistakes in Ukraine. The fear that the U.S. is being caught off guard by China's hypersonic development in particular stems from the notion that seeming anything less than completely dominating is detrimental to U.S. defense. This worry became especially clear in 2021 following China's successful hypersonic missile tests. The Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, Jean-Marc Milley, compared the tests to the Soviet Union's 1957 launch of the first artificial Earth-orbiting satellite and described it as a forerunner to China's Sputnik moment. Hypersonic weapons would not be the deciding factor in a conflict between the U.S. and China or another adversary, according to Heath, given that the U.S. has such an advantage in other military technologies like stealth aircraft, long-range bombers, aircraft carriers, submarines, all of these conventional capabilities that allow the U.S. to deploy forces far from the U.S. and fight and dominate their adversaries without the need for long-range missiles. However, it's crucial to get an understanding of how these weapons should be utilized in combat, as the U.S. invests heavily in hypersonic technology and other countries expand their capabilities. Morris said that won't happen until a significant escalation of the situation, since communication between the U.S. and Chinese militaries is currently lacking, and there's a higher danger of misunderstanding and error. As a result of Russia's withdrawal from New START, the last major nuclear arms control deal, the likelihood of any form of agreement to restrict military technologies is probably just a pipe dream. The majority of important weapons agreements have been reached between the US and Russia or the Soviet Union. That's all for today, but tomorrow holds even more excitement. Feel free to post your valuable response in our comment section below. If you want to see other amazing videos, just subscribe to our YouTube channel.